Welcome back to another Disney Infinity 3.0 tutorial. In this one I'm going to show you how to save a guy from being executed in a Sarlacc pit. Now what you'll see here is I'm just going to go straight into building the routine. Occasionally I try and show you what I'm doing, but it's quite a long clip and I don't have enough time to fit it all in. So what I'm doing here is I've just got a basic block. I've just lined it up with the ramp and I'm just going to set this up here where I want my troops to appear. Now if you want to watch what I've done, if you jump to 25 minutes into this clip you'll see the end result and then you can come back. But what I'm doing here is I'm setting up 5 bricks, because what is I'm going to have a line of troops that are going to appear and escort my guy for his execution, and they're going to protect him all the way down this path. So while I try and rescue him, these guards around him will walk down there protecting him all the way. So what I'm going to do is I've gone into my 5 bricks and I'm going to go to my path tool. And you'll see here I've got 3 levels of the bricks, and there's more than one path I'm going to use. So I'm going to use the middle point, and this path is not going down but coming straight forward. This path is going to be where the troops come along. Now with my other clips that I've done, you'll see that I've moved offset left and right. You can't do that when you use enemy people, enemy characters. So what I'm going to have to do here is, because I want 5 rows, I'm going to have 5 paths in this particular setting. So I'll set this all up. And you can quite close. I think spacing apart it'll give them a little bit better movement. So I'm just spacing them apart here on the screen. And I'm just clicking the point on and moving these paths down. So I'm creating 5 paths all lined up. Okay. So these are where my troops are going to walk down and escort my prisoner to the screen. Now it took a while to get the logic working for this one, because when you connect an enemy to a path, there is an option to make sure he interacts with the environment, but he doesn't really interact with it, so it's a bit of a lie. So what I want to do here is I want the actual guards to stop and interact with me when I go near them. If I don't, then they'll just carry on walking. So I'm just setting up these 5 routes, which I want you to do. And I made like a Tatooine Jakku type place, so don't have a go at me because I'm using Stormtroopers instead of Jabba's palace guards. But I got bored of my Death Star that I was building, so I wanted to make some sort of spaceport. Okay, so set this all up. So these are my 5 bricks that I've got going. Yep. So 5 path tools going all the way across, and my Stormtroopers are going to walk along this path. Now I want my prisoner to walk on a slightly different path. I don't want him to travel on this particular route. Yeah. So I'm going to do a totally separate path for this individual. And it doesn't matter how high off the ground it is. The logic for the friend character will always abide by its own logic, saying it can only walk, so it will follow it. So I've raised this slightly above the other path, and this one goes straight off, and you see line up with my pit, and he'll walk off and drop into the pit and die. But my job is to stop that from happening. Okay. And there's another little tool. Now this one is the one that took a while to work out. This next path is to allow me to work out where I am and the interaction with the troopers. So I'm putting this one along the bottom. So you just see along the bottom there. I'm just going to drag this one all the way along the bottom. And this is going to follow the Stormtroopers. Yeah. But also this path is going to detect how close I am to those troopers. And if I get too close, they're going to interact with me and start attacking. Right. So now I've got my path all lined up. I can come out of there. And what I'm going to do now is go back to those building blocks. Those blocks aren't needed. They were there purely just to help me line stuff up. So I'm now going to delete those out. And be careful when deleting them. You don't delete objects. I've moved it slightly away because I kept on deleting the building. Right, so they're all gone. So our path tool's all set up. What I'm going to need now is some locators. Okay, I'm going to position these locators. These are where the guys are going to appear. The enemies and my friend characters are going to appear. So I'm going to line them up just in front of the path tools. Okay, so they're all the enemies, and I need just one more, and this one is going to be my sensor to tell me how close I get to it, but we'll come back towards the end of this particular clip. So I'm just going to place that there for now. Right, so one thing I noticed when I was trying to do this clip, I tend to use enemy wave generators, and I don't use a single enemy generator. But I find you can't repeat enemy wave generators. You can't have them in a loop, and this is where these become in handy. So I'm basically creating 5 enemy generators, and I'm going to create these in a loop so they will carry on generating troop after troop after troop. Now I got carried away and did loads of them in one of my tests, but it did clog up the memory, so be careful not to have too many objects moving at one time. And I also need an enemy a friend generator to go here as well. Right, so that is now all set up. What I need to do now is link each of these generators to the path and to the tool. So I'm going to click onto the first enemy generator and link that to the first locator. And you'll notice here that I've lined them up to help me remember which one I've done. So again, click onto here, new locator connection, and I'm pointing this one to new locator. So I'm a little bit high because normally I try and get a clip out once a week. I think it's been a week and a half since my last clip, so apologies guys, but it took a while to work this one out. But from working this out, I've got a couple of more clips coming to do with the part, or found some new little tricks you can use. So keep an eye out for those. But what you'll see here now is I'm pointing each of the enemy generators to the locator. So connecting those all up. So new locator connection done. And the last one. So click onto there, new locator connection. So that means when the enemies appear, they're going to appear in this particular point. Yeah, they're all going to appear there on the screen. That's where they're set up. Now the friend one, right, also before I go to the friend one, with the enemy generator, I'm also going to go into here and connect it to the path tool. So before I do the friend one, I'm going to link it to the path and make sure when the enemy connects, it's going to use that particular path. Now, like I said, I want them to walk down in like a patrol, so that's why I'm having a different path for each enemy. If you just do the one path, then it's a staggered line. I would like them to be escorting this particular guard through. And like I say, if you're not too sure what I'm doing, yeah, as I'm linking these to the path tool, if you go to about 25 minutes of the clip, that shows you the end result, so you can see why I've been doing this first. I couldn't fit it all in, like I said, so I've jumped straight into building this particular routine. Right, so we've got the path tool. So all these now are linked to the path. So when I generate an enemy, they're going to appear in those locators and they're going to start walking on their particular paths. And I'm going to do the same now with the friend tool now. So on the friend tool, I'm going to go here. Right, let's do the locator. So new locator connection first. But also, just be aware of, you can point a locator to more than one point. So I'm going to have different points go to the same area. So I'm going to connect that to the middle point. And the difference with this one now, I'm going to do this to the path connector. But this one is going to be the one above the middle. So this one's going to be the top one. Because this one's going to carry on walking off into the pit where they get killed. Okay, so that's where those are connected. So I've now got all my enemy plates set up and ready to go. Right, so if we go to the properties of the first enemy generator, you'll see these settings here, and it'll say ignore outside influence or turn them on. Now, if you switch it on and switch it off, they do look at you, but they still don't leave the path. Once they're set to the path, they don't come off it. So we're going to just leave them on so they totally ignore the things, and I'm going to change it from a loop to one way and stop. Okay, so I'm going to change that setting on the screen. Now I don't want the troops to be distracted. I want them to walk down. Now when I get close to them, that's when I want them to get distracted. So I'm going to leave those as they are, and I'm going to change all these path tools to walk one way and stop. Okay, enemy generated, come out and do the same for all these. So for each one of these enemies, I'm going to have to go through each one of these and change them so they go into the properties, go to enemy generated enemy options, go down to one way and stop. Okay, and I'm going to do it for the whole lot. So like I say, go through the properties. Just remembering all the settings. Get one of these wrongs and it will mess it up, but you'll notice it. But I'll try to get this right for the clip. It'll take a while to work it through. Right. Back and forth, that's that one done. Now there's slightly different options with the friend generator. So after I've done this one, go to the friend generator options, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Go to properties. I'm going to go down to generated friend options, and all I have on there is the movement, and that's just going to go walk to the end and stop. The only downside is when it gets to the end, it will fall off and die, and it will be executed. But that's what we've got to try and stop. Okay. Now before I trigger those off, what I want to do is to set the speed of these paths. Right, because they're going to repeat one after the other, I'm going to set the path. So if I go onto the actual path tool and go down to properties, I can change the speed, and default speed's 100. Now, for a Stormtrooper, that's way too quick. That's like their running speed. So I'm going to change that to 25, because I find that a Stormtrooper at 25 is a good walking march pace. So you can thank me for all the time I spent looking at different times and speeds and which were the best ones. So I'm going to change those to 25. Now, I was under the impression that theoretically, when you set anything at a speed, they all travel the same speed. Well, they don't. Different objects have different speeds depending on what that object is, which I find slightly frustrating. So what I found is my friend generator actually walks at a slower pace because he's a slightly smaller character. So he doesn't walk at the same steps as my Stormtroopers. So the problem I've got there is that the friends started getting out of sync. So after you set all the troop paths to 25, I have to change the enemy path. I have to change the friend path. So I'm changing all these to 25 as you see I'm going through. Right? So there now all the troops will walk at the one speed. But what I'm having to do here is at the top, the friend path, which is the top one, yeah, that one, I'm going to change to 30 because they're a smaller character and that seems to keep in uniform with the Stormtroopers. So I've done all the hard work for you, so keep it 30 and he'll now walk in between the settings. And then the only last thing I need is the bottom one, which I'm going to do at 25, and that's my little sensor to see how close I get to this patrol. If I get too close, they're going to start attacking me, so I'm going to change that to 25. Now hopefully that is now all my configuration for when my enemies appear and what they start doing straight away. So what I've got to do now is trigger those enemies to appear. Okay, so I'm going to need two items. I'm going to need two logic gates. So I'm going to press these up, and you can see in my previous scripts I love my logic gates and what triggers them, so I can use them. So let's find my logic gate here. Right, the first logic gate, this one here, just sends me a whole line of troops, and this logic gate is going to send me 4 troops and my friend. So now I'm going to go into this tool. I'm going to say, right, new logic connection on output. So when I trigger this thing by sending an input in, on output, can we generate a wave? So I'm going to go to my Rise of the Republic and I'm going to generate a Stormtrooper. Yeah. Now I'm going to do this with all of these. Now, like I said, I've done it in Tatooine type, Jakku type planet. I wanted its Stormtrooper settings because I just think they look cool when they're escorting the guards. That was the main reason why I was doing it. Maybe I should do this on a Death Star. Maybe I should have done this on a screen. But I can use any character. So a lot of you say, why do you always do a Star Wars one? Because I like Star Wars. But the enemies don't have to be Star Wars. Yeah. You could use ice giants. They could be escorting a king. It doesn't have to be Stormtroopers. You can pick what the enemy you want it to be to fit in with your story. Just because I'm doing Stormtroopers doesn't mean you have to. So what I've gone through all these points here is I've gone on output, yeah, new logic connection, on output, yeah, point to the enemy tool, yeah, so then I go to the last enemy one, and I say, go to Rise of the Toy Box, and I've chosen Stormtroopers. So you pick which one, and that generates a line of Stormtroopers on that trigger. Now on this one, pretty much the same, but this is going to be generated halfway through. So the first two does, when I do an output on here, I want a Stormtrooper either side, so can I have a Stormtrooper again? Okay, do the same on the other one. Go back to there. Now the difference here is I don't use the middle options. I've got 2 on the side, which is a Stormtrooper, but now I want them for my guard. So if I go into here and go to new connection on output, I go to the friend option. And in here I go to the Rise Against the Empire, which by far is the best play set. It's got the best objects, best toys as well. Now you've got various characters. Be careful on the characters. Some characters you can't pick up. Now I did a clip called How to Build a Transporter, and it picked out which character you can pick up. We need to make sure the character we pick we can actually grab. Otherwise they'll just run off and die. You won't be able to stop them. So it's got to be a character you can pick up on the screen. So I'm going to choose Wedge in this particular case because he stands out in red. So I'm choosing Wedge in this particular. So we're going to rescue Wedge. And now I need to do the other 2 Stormtroopers. So we go back onto this option. So I'm going to do output, and I'm going to send it to this Stormtrooper. Okay, so this is the logic to get my troops to appear. So last one, on output. Okay, now what I'm going to follow this up with now is what triggers this. How do I get the whole patrol to move? So the following net sets of commands is how we get that sequence to occur. Okay, so we've now got our 2 enemies set up. Those 2 triggers are set up. What I want to know is how do I get a whole squadron to appear? And this is what the following clips are going to do. So make sure you pay attention. I'm going to need a logic gate. That's my starting point. That's what triggers. When I fire a signal in here, that is what's going to set the whole chain reaction going. I'm also going to need a repeater. That's going to repeat the lines of troops that go through. So how many troops do I want? One I repeat, one after the other. I'm also going to need another logic gate to switch between when do I do my first line of troops and when do I do my prisoner. Okay. And I'm also going to need a counter, I believe. So go back to the counter option. This counter will tell me how many rows in this patrol. So that's going to keep a record of how many in this patrol unit. And I need a counter on this side to work out when do I put my prisoner. I want them in the middle. Yeah, so I'm going to put my prisoner in the middle of the screen. So that's my count on the screen at that point. And I need one more logic gate because once I've got my prisoner, I want to stop it. So I'm going to switch that door closed to stop it from happening. So they're all the components, and I've laid it out so I can follow the sequence. Yeah, so when you lay this out, try and make it easy for yourself where you do it. I can move them once they're done. But what I'm going to say is, right, I'm going to send a signal in here. So when I get an output, so new logic connection from here, when I get an output, can you turn on the repeater? So the repeater is now on. Now, on the property settings, I play around with this. I find about every 3 seconds is about the perfect space in between the Stormtroopers. They don't bump into each other. So every 3 seconds, I would like you to repeat. Yeah. So what I can then do here is, right, new logic connection on this tool. On repeat, can you send a signal to this logic gate? Okay, can you input a signal in here? And like I said 1,000 times, logic gates start open. So then I can do a new logic connection on that gate. On output, just send me a Stormtrooper. So can you input that signal there, and that will set the Stormtrooper running. Okay, so that will go. Which is fine, and that will then do all my Stormtroopers, one after arrive, a whole patrol of Stormtroopers will appear. Now on here also, as I'm going through, I need to keep a record of how many I'm doing. So again, I can go onto the side here and go, right, new logic connection. On repeat, can we keep a record of how many? Can you increase my counter by 1? Yeah, and how many do we want in this patrol? So in this setting here, we go to properties and we can change that target. I want 7 patrol on the screen. So whatever number you have in here depends on how many lines of troops. And if you want, that's all you can do for your clip. You just want to set up patrol. That's all you need to do. Now the difference here is when that reaches that target of 7, yeah, so when that target is reached, I need to switch off the repeater. Whoops, by accident I switched it back on. I'll go back to it. Sorry, go back to that property. On target reached, can you switch off the repeater? So I want the item stop. So when I get to 7, turn the repeater off, which will stop any enemies or friends being generated. Now another thing I need to do, on repeat, I want to send a signal the other way. Can I input a signal into this gate? And on output of this particular gate, so new logic connection, on output, can we increase this counter by 1? Okay. Now in this example I've got it wrong. I think I set this to 2. So in my properties here, I go to the properties of this counter. I wanted this to appear in the middle. So I should have set this property to 3, but I left it at 2 by accident. Right, set it to 3, and I don't need to see the counter appearing on the screen, so I might as well switch that off. I don't need to see the 7 going on the screen, so I'm just going to properties and take off the visibility. I don't need to see it on either of those 2 options. But I've got that counter now. Now when I reach the target of that counter, that means I want the prisoner to appear. So I'm going to do a new logic connection. When target reach, can we close that gate? Now when you close the gate, it will switch the signal coming from this repeater. So in that case, what I'm going to say is, well, in that case, when that new logic connection on this logic gate, when this item is blocked, therefore, can you send a signal to this gate? And by sending a signal to this gate, we'll now get my prisoner and Stormtroopers to appear. Right, so now that's done, I want to say that process is finished. And once I've generated the wave, I only want 1 guard. So if I keep that open, it'll do 2 guards, 3. It'll give me 4 or 5 prisoners. I only want the 1. So on here, once I send a signal out on output, can we then close that gate? Because I don't need to count how many more, so I can close that particular item. So therefore, the signal will stop going to it. So also, what I need to do now here is new logic connection as well on output, which means I've generated my friend. Yeah. So on output there, can we now reopen this gate, which will then go back and to load up the troopers behind us. So that will now switch that particular item on. And that there is the logic that we've got. That will set us all up to get our troops done. All I've got to do is send a signal into there, and I've got my guards happening across. The only problem is they will not interact with me. They'll just march all the way to the end and kill them. So this next bit will now set up how to interact them. Right, how do I get my troops to interact? And I need a couple of gates. I need a logic gate here. Okay, so this section here is how I get my lines to interact. So I need 2 logic gates. I need a dynamic trigger. And I need a delay timer. So once we position all those up, I'll show you where the logic goes for this particular item. Right, so let's go back and stay in Spark mode. What we're going to do here is we have this little sensor, so we have this dynamic trigger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this to the locator. And that locator happens to be this one that we've set at the side. Okay, so I'm going to link it to that location. Okay, so when we go near that item, it's going to trigger this button off. So in this case here, I'm going to go back to the properties of this dynamic trigger, and I'm going to go properties, and I must change that, not to say this toy, I must change that to go all the way down to locator. Okay, and I'm going to change the radius for this to about 20. So I'm going to set that to a 20 setting. So when I go near that locator, it's going to trigger a signal that says, right, stop the guards. Now the only problem I've got here is that this trigger only wants to happen when there are guards going. This is why I need the logic gates. So when you enter that area, so I'm going to go into logic on this dynamic trigger. When a player enters that area, I would like you to input a signal into that gate. That means I need you to interact with the troopers. But we need to make sure the troopers are running to start with. Right? Because if the troopers aren't there, then I don't want you interacting with that item. So in this case here, what we're going to say is when we start the actual project, so very start, a new logic connection, on output from here we said we're starting this off. We can say, right, we know we're starting, so can we now close this gate? That means we are now, troops are appearing, and we can use the interaction button. So it'll hit this, it's closed, so we say, right, we now know that that's happened. Okay? So that'll send it through. Now what we're also going to do is that we need to make sure the counter is in a particular place, right, when we've set the troops. Now, I want the counter to be in the middle where the trooper is. So when we go to the friend generator, when we output that option here, okay, when we do this part here, I'm going to do a trigger to this, the second logic gate. And what this does is going to reset. So when I send a signal here, is right, our friend has appeared. So new logic connection on output. Can you go and reset this path here, which is the one at the bottom? Can you reset that logic path? That's the one with the sensor. Okay, can you reset and play it? And the reason for that is when I connect the locator, so if I go to that locator now, and if I go there, new path connection, as soon as I connect it to this path, it should, when I get connected, start moving. So set path, there's the object, and it starts moving along. So depending on how, when I trigger this item off, when I go to this item here, it will send that signal, which will reset that, will bring it back, and it'll be around about when the same guard appears on the, when the friend appears on the system. So now when I walk near that traveling locator, it goes to this button and says, right, when you go into here, new logic goes, when the input is blocked, because we know we've got troops, what I want you to do here is, can you turn these paths off? Okay, by turning the paths off, the stormtroopers that are linked to that path suddenly stop, and then their own logic cuts in, and then they look around, and then they will start attacking you. Yeah, they'll leave the path and start. So their whole unit at the moment is to stay on this path. As soon as they switch it off, they go back to being the normal selves and then start fall out and attacking you. But we only do the two end ones. We want the rest of the guards to carry on moving through. So the rest of the guards will keep marching on while the side guards will attack you. So what we're saying here is also, when we've got that blocked, can we send a signal to the time delay? So we're going to say the other troops are going to carry on running, but what we want is we're going to say, give you about 20 seconds, yeah? And after that 20 seconds, when that delay is up, can we trigger off the other troops? So we do new logic connection. When delay complete, can we now say, right, the second line of troops, which is the other side protected, and we're going to now go and help the other guys. So we're going to turn those ones off. Yep, so same thing again. Go to new logic connection. When delay complete, for this one, it's going to switch these items off in the second set of items. So the middle guys are still escorting my prisoner to the pit. So they carry on while the other guys try and hold us off. So I've got my two sections on here. And that is basically traveling through on the screen. That is all our logic from the screen. So all I've got to do now is send the trigger here to start this item off. Now, I've already set up a zone to start this item off, because I'm going to show you when it happens when I rescue them. So I'm going to say, when I go into this area, when I've entered this, by any player, can I send a signal in? And if you look at my how to receive a mission from Jabba the Hutt, you could have a guard send you the signal through as well. So the same logic applies if I had it, Jabba the Hutt tell me to go and rescue this guy. So input a signal here, we'll start this item off. Right, we'll save this and we'll give this a test and see if it works. Right, so here we go. We jump up here on the top of the pallet. That'll enter the area. It'll start my trigger, and there you go. My first wave of troops starting to appear. Then my second wave of troops appear. And I mentioned at the beginning, I think I should have done it as 3, but you'll see my prisoner now appears behind the guards, and the guards are now all walking in line. And they're now marching down here on the screen. Here they go, off their marches. So there's my patrol, escorting my prisoner to their death. I need to rescue them and save him before he gets to the pit. So if I jump down here now, let's go and jump down. The guards ignoring me, they're still walking away. Not a problem with there, that's good. Now if I get too close, that's when they're not going to like it. So at the moment they're walking away, not interacting at all, keep walking. As soon as I get close, the side guys now stop, go, whoa, not having that. They stall, the logic kicks in, and they will now start attacking me. So I can start killing them. Here they go, right, let's get rid of them. They all, their own logic kicks in. So they're now fighting, and I've got to kill them through. The other guards are still walking across. You'll see the other guards are still escorting my prisoner. So if I don't do anything, they're still escorting him to the pit. So I need to be quick, otherwise they're going to get killed. Right, now the other guards have now stopped, and the other side lines have joined in. They're realising they're still being attacked, so they've got to come in and help. And they're still escorting my guy off to his death. So I need to get there and get these guys. They're attacking me. Now I've got it as a prisoner. The first time when I tried this out, I actually had an Imperial officer in the middle, because I was trying to execute the guards. I want to ambush or capture him. After watching the new Rogue One trailer, I thought, well, I could have him there. He's got the plans, and he's moving to a ship, and I've got to intercept him and get the plans off him. So you could do it 2 ways: grab an enemy, or in this case, save a guy from being executed. So I got a few of those killed, but he's getting close to the pits. Now one reason why I used Fett as well, he's got the jetpack, which will come in handy in a moment. So let's get rid of these guys. I've got full interaction with the guys now. They're all moving, so let's fly through. We'll get rid of him. Let's cut it to the wire. Now also, the other guards have got there, so they've now turned around. My guard's going to get himself killed at the top. Don't get killed, no! Let's save him, so fly through, down, let's pick him up, quick. Right, let's get out of here. I've rescued my guy. Now, if you've ever seen How to Board a Transport, I've set this hanger up. And what I do is going to rescue him and grab him in the screen. So I'm going to just drop him down. These guards are coming. But when you let go of the guy, because he's linked to the path, he's going to run back and commit suicide now. I've killed the troops, so I'm going to go through here. Now, for some reason, whether because I'm carrying it won't let me go through this door. I don't know why it wouldn't let me go through. It might be because I'm carrying somebody, but couldn't get in there whatsoever. So I'm going to jump back up on using my jetpack. But as I was saying, if you've seen my How to Board a Transporter, it's exactly the same clip, but I've got the spaceship here. I've done something slightly a little bit cool with the path tools, which I'll show you in another clip. So I'll just chuck him down here. I need to get him to the ship and get rid of him. So let's pick him back up again. No, he wants to go and die. Nope, I'm saving your life. Get back. Pick you up. Right, if I chuck him in here now, I get this to occur. Now the ship goes in. Very slowly does it raise. Excellent, I've saved him. Dun, dun, dun. And when he gets to a certain height, the ship will fly off and take off. Right, well there you go. That's my how to stop an execution. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think of the feedback of this. And remember, adapt it and see what you think, what different types of techniques you can come with your own styles. Thanks for